Hello everyone, Ruby Ravel here, goddess of thunder, ready to shock you out of your slumber like a shield maiden of surprise. And I will be doing that today by discussing Sun square Uranus, which is itself a shocking aspect. Now, in astrology, Uranus is often referred to as being the Awakener, and in our age likes to think of itself as being illuminated and enlightened. We tend to think of awakening as this positive force where the scales fall from our eyes and we suddenly see things clearly, where we have these sudden breakthroughs and aha moments, those eurekas in which inspiration comes trickling down upon us and the clouds of darkness are dispersed, and suddenly all knowledge and divine afflatus is ours for the taking. But it really isn't that simple. And to put this into a allegorical frame of mind, if we just think about what it means to actually wake up for a moment, literally on a physical level. Let's say you are asleep in bed, you are warm, you are snug, you are cozy, you are having the softest of most delicate dreams. You feel like you could remain in this languorous state, this delicious cocoon forever, when suddenly the alarm clock goes off, or someone rushes into the room, shakes you awake, and says, "The house is on fire, we have to get out now." That is the kind of awakening that Uranus does. It's not the gentle one of a lover grabbing you and kissing you on the nape of your neck and then maybe offering you coffee or love making for breakfast. It is the sudden awakening. Because very often, many of us live our lives asleep. We live on autopilot. Life, being cyclical and repetitious, thrives on repetition, it thrives on routine, it thrives on us having some kind of semblance of order in which we go about things day after day, week after week, with very little variation or change only occurring on a moderate level. But the problem is, when we live life too routinely, it's very easy just to switch off. If we have this unchanging routine, any vigilance or alertness from us is not required, because we're not dealing with the shock of having to process anything new or foreign or alien or unfamiliar. Nothing, we don't feel like anything surprising is going to happen that is going to make any great demands on our consciousness. So we feel we can just walk through life and trust that it will do today very much what it did yesterday and the day before that. Not so with Uranus. Uranus is the god who likes to bring us those thunderbolts of surprise, who likes us to feel like we are going steadily in one direction and then suddenly, bang, we find ourselves teleported into another planet, to a realm that is very unfamiliar to us, and having to navigate that terrain. Now, with an aspect like this, it can play itself out in a variety of different ways, depending on our relationship to that Uranian energy. For some, it might manifest as a conscious desire to break away from the mundanity of routine. Sometimes during Sun square Uranus transits, we find ourselves fatigued with normality. We find ourselves fed up of being stuck in a rut and life just going through the same old humdrum paces. We almost become contemptuous of normality, of familiarity. And we want something new to happen. We want there to be more to life than simply maintaining and conserving what we already have. We want there to be something that lifts us to higher realms, that makes our life feel more meaningful and purposeful. And therefore, we become restless and perhaps more contemptuous towards the people or things in life that we feel are holding us back. Things that normally satisfy us, which are normally enough for us, suddenly feel like shackles which are preventing us from being our full self. And we have this inkling that there is something else we should be doing, this rash, this fever upon the soul, which is saying, no, I've got to find something greater in life. Now, there can be greater or lesser extremes of this. If you're a very Uranian person or someone who already has Uranus in aspect to the sun, you may feel this way already. You may already be someone who is dismissive of the ordinary aspects of life and who is always reaching for something illuminating, for something that's going to challenge their idea of themselves and who they are. Some people naturally have an aversion to the idea of the fixed self. They always want to be expanding and growing in some way. They always want to be learning something new or shocking about themselves that can push them in a different direction. However, for some people who have this very fixed, dogmatic approach to themselves, who feel that they have this enduring fixed personality about which they could never be shocked with any surprises, may find that those surprises do come to them during this transit. And if we are unwilling to find out new things about ourselves, or if we are unwilling to embrace change because we feel too calm and contented or complacent with how things are, then the universe usually has to orchestrate some kind of shocks to force change upon us, to force awareness of new things upon us. And so usually during Sun Square Uranus transits, things do not go according to plan. Sudden events, shocks, crises, or difficulties arise that naturally break the mold of our fixed pattern of life and force us to engage with new elements. I would say a lot of accidents to become more likely under transits squaring Uranus, because we feel more restless, more erratic, because we feel jittery, or because we are more stuck in our heads. We naturally become less observant of what is going on in the world around us. And it's when we are feeling that jittery energy, when we are moving faster than normal, when we're not really looking at where we're going because our head is in the heavens, that is more likely when we're going to trip over and break a bone, or walk into a car, or find that something, backfires against us. So it's good to find a way of being grounded with that very ungrounded energy, where it can often feel like the stable floor of reality has suddenly been pulled like a trapdoor on a stage from beneath us, and we are left there swinging from side to side while the wind blows us back and forth, because we have to remember that Uranus rules Aquarius, which is an air sign. And I often like to think of the different physical, literal manifestations of what that air sign is like. And if I think of Gemini as perhaps as being the excitable breezes of spring, which are refreshing and exciting without being too disturbing, and the winds of Libra being much more gentle and refreshing, like the crisp, encroaching air of autumn, the air that Aquarius represents, and Uranus by extension, is more like a tornado or a hurricane, this big whirling force of intellectual nervous energy that wants to come and shake up everything and uproot everything and tear up the trees and destroy buildings and say, no, enough of this. We need a total overhaul, we need a total change, otherwise we will carry on stagnating and just doing the same things we've always done. No, there has to be some kind of refreshment and rejuvenation if we are to become our real selves. And with that square, there is that tension between wanting to honor that energy, but there's also the danger of going too far. We can sometimes be very extreme during Uranus transits, because, like I said, we hate to feel like we're shackled by everything. We can be ruthless and cutthroat and just feel that anything that is holding us back or not supporting this restless energy needs to go. And it's not uncommon for people to end partnerships or friendships during this transit. Even if we have a very good friendship or a very loving partner, sometimes we can still feel, maybe we've become too dependent on that person. Maybe that person is occupying too much space in our life, which something novel and fresh could occupy. And of course, that can be a good or bad thing depending on the nature of the relationship. If we genuinely have some toxic friendships or relationships in our life that is taking up too much of our time, then this can be a good aspect for severing ties that have become stagnant, or which are taking more than they are giving from us, or which are relationships that are based more on habit, but which are not actually helping us grow or become more of ourselves. And we see many relationships like this, where people stay friends or they stay partners simply because that's what they've always done, and there's that comfort in familiarity. But then sometimes when have been in a relationship with someone for such a long time, we can find that other person develops very fixed views of us. Our partners or our friends have this frozen image of us that hasn't really changed from when we were a child or a teenager. And that can be very restrictive. If we're trying to become something else and someone is saying, no, you are this sacred vision of you that I refuse to change my mind, then sometimes it is easier to distance yourself, whether permanently or temporarily, from that person, so you have the freedom to thoroughly explore the new person you may be in the process of becoming. Equally, if people can suddenly depart or exit our lives, or we feel the need to hasten those ourselves, including business and work connections, not just interpersonal ones, it can also be a time when new people can suddenly come into our lives, particularly Uranian people who can show up in our lives and suddenly change our perspective on things almost overnight in this flash of illumination, who can expose us to ideas and modes of thinking or becoming that we've never encountered before, and then disappear just as quickly. Uranus doesn't often make for lasting connections with people, because Uranus is more about introducing people to truth and to unexplored areas of their heart and mind. And once it has fulfilled that process, it is not necessarily interested in sticking around. So yes, you can meet all kinds of strange and unconventional people in this transit, who are designed to shock you in some way, who are designed to challenge your personal status quo and your personal tabernacle of values, and to place seeds of doubt in which novel perceptions can creep in, or vice versa. You might be that Uranian person in someone else's life, someone who's showing up in someone's life, disrupting it, messing it up in some way, or exposing them to new ideas, and then disappearing as quickly as you came, like the human whirlwind that you are. That's most of the psychological basics covered in a nutshell. On a mundane level, which I do not specialize in, this is definitely an aspect of major political upheaval. I mean, we've already been seeing so much of that already. I did say in my Sun conjunct Pluto video that it would be a time when political figures or people in power, or those in the monarchy, or any kind of great patriarchal person would find their corrupt deeds exposed. And we've seen that consistently in the UK with all of the many scandals currently going on. I mean, take your pick, whether it's the chief of the police, or former chancellors, or former prime ministers, or current prime ministers. All of their nasty deeds are currently being brought to light. Whereas during square Uranus, we might see some challenges to those leaderships, to people trying to overthrow those same leaders because of the corruption they've had exposed. I know there's going to be mass strike action during that period, and what will be the result of it, I cannot say, because you can never predict anything with Uranus. And that's the weird thing about talking about Uranus transits. You can look at the period when Uranus is transiting another planet, you can see how long it's lasting, and you can say, something strange is going to happen in that period, but you can't necessarily define what. You can just have a vague idea of the personalities and the energies and the dynamics that are involved. Anyway, that's enough from this thunderous Shieldmaiden now. If you have anything you want to comment or share, if you have your own Uranus stories to talk about, please leave a comment down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for all of your love and support.